What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the other day, Nintendo made two announcements that did not go over that well online with gamers. One is an Amiibo for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD that has a certain feature locked behind it, and the other were just Nintendo Switch Online games that failed to impress really anyone. We're going to go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a big upgrade coming to what's the best rated PlayStation 4 game really at this point as it heads to the PS5, pushing that frame rate up. And we're also going to be talking about Summer Games Fest as we are heading towards E3. Turns out we're going to be stopping off there first as the full schedule has been released, as well as all of the publishers and developers who will be taking part in this, and that includes Sony. You guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Mega Man: The Wily Wars. This was a game that came out really in the US just on the Sega channel, but in Europe and Japan, they did have a physical cartridge. However, it looks like we'll finally have a chance to get a licensed Mega Man Wily Wars copy from Capcom and Retrobit starting in just a couple of days here. We can head over this at retrobit.com. Mega Man: The Wily Wars Collector's Edition. This mega collection is set to be officially released on a physical cartridge for the first time in North America. You can see an image here showing all the contents from that collector's edition, and I really do like the blue cartridge there. I think that looks really, really cool. We'll also have a save backup battery inside of it, so you'll be able to save your progress there. And you can see, of course, the manual and all the extra goodies there that comes with it, as well as a reversible cover art with the classic Genesis casing, and even like the little hanger tab at the top there. All of this going for $69.99 with what looks like pre-orders opening May 21st and running for a full month until June 21st. So if you're looking to get in, I would do that as soon as possible, obviously, when these open up. And they also talked about doing some improvements, which includes the frame rate itself that did have slowdown when it first came out. Apparently, they managed to fix that with this release. So good stuff there, especially if you're a big Mega Man fan and you're looking to pick up the Wily Wars officially from Capcom. This would be your best shot at it. Also, we did get a release date for the Ascent that will be heading into Game Pass day one as well. This was one that Microsoft had shown off before at one of their shows. And when they first showed it, it was like this isometric shooter style game. And I thought, okay, that looks kind of cool. It had kind of that cyberpunk look to it as well. Turns out, it's a bit deeper than I originally thought in terms of the gameplay and the RPG mechanics, because we had a ton of previews come out, and they also released a trailer here where they talk about the game going to Game Pass and releasing on PC July 29th. And from some of the previews that I saw, which I did like Windows Central, I thought they did a very good job kind of going over the first couple of hours of the game. It turns out this looks like kind of a shooter at face value, but they also have a lot of deep mechanics around character customization and even crafting. So looking at this, you know what? I will give this a shot. I mean, it's going into Game Pass, so it's kind of one of those things where like, why not, I guess, but much more interesting than I initially thought when they showed it, so I'll be checking this one out at the end of July. Oh, and we talked previously about how Super Bomberman R Online would be going to other platforms outside of Stadia, which is great because if Stadia goes away, then so does what looks like a Battle Royale style Bomberman game with 64 players, and we now have a release date for a couple of the platforms. One is still kind of up in the air, but we can head over here to the website for Super Bomberman R Online, where it shows the date of May 27th, 2021. That will be on PS4, PS5, Steam, and Nintendo Switch. We can see below that the release date for the Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S version of Super Bomberman R Online will be confirmed at a later date. Hard to say what's going on there. I don't know if there's like a timed exclusivity deal. I assume not, because it's going to the Switch and the PlayStation. It'd be weird if they were like, well, it's just not going to the Xbox. Most likely they still have to work a few things out and has to go through the overall certification process there. But exciting stuff here for Bomberman fans since it's out next week, and this looked pretty cool on Stadia from what we saw, and it's good to hear that it's going to other platforms. Like I said, just in case Stadia goes away, this will also have full crossplay, so make sure you check this one out next week. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this new Amiibo that Nintendo announced and why it annoyed a lot of gamers online, especially if they were already talking about the pricing around Skyward Sword HD on the Switch when that was revealed to be a full $60. We can head over here to the website where Nintendo made the announcement for this Amiibo, where they say new Zelda and Loftwing Amiibo figure launches alongside The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD on July 16th. And I mean, we can see the figure right here, and it looks good. Like, this is a really high quality looking Amiibo figure. I'm not a big Amiibo collector, but I know people who will just buy every one that comes out and they will not take them out of the packaging at all. They say here it will accompany the launch of Skyward Sword HD, but it really came down to what this Amiibo does that started to annoy people. Normally, you can only return from the surface to the sky by way of designated save points, but using the Zelda and Loftwing Amiibo while on the surface in the game will allow you to return to the skies from anywhere on the surface, and that also includes inside dungeons. So essentially, if you go back up, as they say, to the skies, you'll be able to restock, replenish all of this, and then you can go back to, I guess, the dungeon just by tapping this Amiibo, which I'm going to say it's not like a game-breaking thing necessarily to not have access to this, because we played through the game like originally without this, and it wasn't that big of a deal to run to a statue, then you technically like teleport up, you teleport back down to the statue, then you run back. But that's certainly a cool feature that would be good to have in the game that people are buying at $60, which is more than it was on the Wii. You figure like a little improvement like this, or a quality of life improvement, would be added in. Some people are seeing it as even like a cheat code, because, I mean, think about it. You could be halfway through a dungeon and be like, oh, I'm in trouble. I don't really have any way to heal up. I don't have enough items or something there, right? And you can say, oh, wait, let me get that Amiibo. I'll tap the switch and then I'm back up and I can go through all of that and then immediately jump back to where I was. You don't have to go down a statue and then run all the way back through the dungeon. It'll just teleport you right back in. And yeah, I would look at that kind of like, wow, that makes the game very, very easy. But in that case, it just shouldn't exist at all. Like, do you really think Nintendo needs an Amiibo to present a cheat code like this? Specifically one that's themed around The Legend of Zelda during the Legend of Zelda anniversary year next to Skyward Sword HD releasing. The thing could like give you a heart and people would still buy it and then look to flip it online anyway. So naturally this didn't go over too well online, but this is like, I wouldn't even say this is the most egregious thing Nintendo's done with Amiibos. There have been several in the past with one, I guess most recently was Samus Returns, where you got like the I think Metroid Amiibo, and it would unlock Fusion mode, which was like an even harder mode than hard mode. Basically an entire mode was locked behind the Amiibo. You could still unlock the regular hard mode. It was just, you know, an extra thing on top of that. But really, I think looking at this is The Legend of Zelda that was Metroid. I mean, we're just trying to get people to show up to the dance for any of these Metroid games that come out. If a Zelda game comes out, people show up to the dance early to volunteer to help set up. So I think really with a game that already had controversy around it when it came to the pricing, which the game's already shot up to Amazon's best-selling games anyway, so turns out the price hasn't been that big of an issue for the vast majority of gamers, but then you put this on top of it and you're like, well, that could have just been in the game, and the Amiibo's $25 instead of being like $15, and it just keeps stacking one on top of the other with this. And then you also wonder, well, how far would Nintendo look to push this as they go along? As far as they want, I guess. We'll see what else gets eventually put behind Amiibos. I don't know if they'll go that crazy with this whole thing, because they technically haven't just yet, but still, it makes you wonder if EA had done this with BioWare, with like Mass Effect Legendary Edition. What if they took some of those, or one of those quality of life improvements, and they put it behind a figure that you had to buy separately from the game for $25? I do wonder how the internet would react to that as well. Next up, let's talk about a big free upgrade that is coming to The Last of Us Part 2 for the PlayStation 5. We can head over here to the PlayStation blog, where they say, so far 2021 has been an incredible and supremely humbling, as The Last of Us Part 2 has been recognized with over 300 Game of the Year awards, an unprecedented achievement. One of the most requested items from our community has been to release a PS5 performance patch for The Last of Us Part 2. Well, today is the day, and you can download the free patch right now. Once patch 1.08 for The Last of Us Part 2 is installed on your PS5, you can find a toggle in the display options that allows you to choose between a frame rate target of 30 or 60 FPS. This allows you to choose your preferred frame rate to complement the rest of the enhancements that are part of the PS5 backward compatibility with PS4 games, such as an enhanced resolution, faster load times, and more. The team has been digging into the PS5 hardware and the possibilities unlocked since the launch last year, and we're excited about what the future holds. This patch is just this first step of working on the PS5. We'll let you know when we've got more news to share. So I guess one thing to take away from this is the fact that they put out a patch that unlocks the frame rate. The game already looks really good anyway. They talk about faster load times. I would not expect necessarily a PlayStation 5 re-release of this game, kind of like what they did with The Last of Us remastered to the PS4, and a lot of that had to do with it's a PS3 game. We don't have PS3 backwards compatibility for the PS4, so we're just gonna have to do a full port for this, and hey, while they're at it, they'll clean it up and they'll make it run better. This, I think, is as far as they're gonna take Last of Us Part 2 as it is, which, as much controversy is around this game, the game itself is still very good when it comes to visuals, animations, the ability to tell the story, and gameplay in general with shooting and stealth and all of this, and enemy AI. But now I'm thinking, okay, so they have this game from 30 to 60. Does that mean they also have plans going forward for something with a multiplayer where, okay, it's already 60 here with Last of Us Part 2. We kind of built the multiplayer similar to Last of Us Part 2, and it'll be 60 frames per second immediately out of the gate on the PlayStation 5. They also talk about how they're digging more into the PS5 hardware, and who knows, maybe they'll look to some of their older releases, like something in the Uncharted series, to have a PlayStation 5 patch for that as well. So we'll see what they want to do with that, but most likely with how Naughty Dog is, they're going to be working on a game for like the next 5 or 6 years, and then it'll release towards the end of the PS5's life. We have heard that they are going to be, I guess, remaking Last of Us again. So to go alongside, I assume the show that's going to be coming out, that at least makes sense from a business perspective. But still, overall, pretty cool to see this patch head to the PS5 now. And if you want to go back and play through The Last of Us Part 2, you might as well check that out since it is currently released on the PS5. Next up, let's talk about new titles coming to the Nintendo Switch online service. This is always fun, isn't it? Whenever they announce these, you see it on Twitter and then you kind of click and go, all right, well, here we go. Let's take a look. This is at the top, Super NES, Nintendo Switch Online. These will be heading to that service May 26th, so starting next week. Super Baseball Simulator 1000. Hey, you know what? Super Baseball Simulator 1000 is fun. I played Baseball Simulator 1000 actually quite a bit on the original Nintendo back in the day at like some of the stores. We'd get it in on trade-in, and I really ended up liking that game. I didn't play it as much on the Super Nintendo, but hey, it'll be cool to see it here, and I'll check it out. Caveman Ninja, also known as Joe and Mac. Joe and Mac's a good game. Magical Drop 2, also a pretty good game. And then Spanky's Quest, sure. And then for the NES, we have Ninja Jaja Maru. That is, I mean, hey, that's one of the games that I'd be walking through Blockbuster and I just never quite rented it. So good to see that one is finally, okay, look, this isn't very exciting. The games that they are announcing for the Nintendo Switch Online, and it hasn't been for a while now. And I think that's the biggest issue we're running into. Let's say they announced everything there minus Spanky's Quest, and they had in Earthbound. Everyone would be ecstatic, right? Like that's the biggest thing. They need to at least line up a big release alongside of some smaller ones that they seem to dig out of the bottom of the barrel at this point, right? That would be the best strategy, but instead they're getting everything out of like the bottom of the barrel and then just saying, hey, here you go. We'll see you guys in 3 or 4 months. And that's the biggest problem now, is they've just lost the overall excitement that we had originally when Super Nintendo games were starting to show up. And I don't know if another system is gonna really push them back to that level of excitement. It will initially, right? Because they'll say, hey, here's a bunch of Nintendo games showing up for the N64. But then I feel like, especially with the Nintendo 64 and the limited library there, we'll run into this situation where they'll give us like 1 or 2 games for the 64, and it'll be ones that no one's ever heard of. So we'll see what we have going forward here. I guess some of the better ones would be Joe and Mac and Baseball Simulator 1000, because why not? And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Summer Game Fest 2021. We had Summer Game Fest last year, but it felt like it was thrown together kind of at the last minute where we didn't have E3, and I guess Jeff Keighley thought we could run this through the entire summer, and I think we're still in phase 1 now, but it looks like we're gonna have Summer Game Fest 2021 to look forward to, and it's starting up a few days before E3. We can head over here to Twitter. This from Jeff Keighley saying, "Welcome to Summer Game Fest 2021. It begins Thursday, June 10th with Kickoff Live, a spectacular live world premiere showcase, including a performance by Weezer, streaming everywhere at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I will go ahead and live stream that because when I saw the number of studios and developers and publishers that are going to be taking part in this, I was a bit surprised. Now, Jeff does mention this is the first lineup of details, so I assume we're going to hear more about this as we get closer to June 10th in a couple of weeks here. But if you head over to the website, you can see all of the different developers and publishers here with like 2K, Activision, I think that's Amazon Games, that should be pretty funny, Blizzard, Capcom, Devolver, Psyonix, Bandai Namco, we have Sega, Saber Interactive, Koch Media, EA, Riot Games, Square Enix, Steam is going to be there, and then we also have Xbox and PlayStation. No Nintendo, by the way, which is interesting that of all the companies, it's Nintendo that's not going to be a part of this. At least this is, they say, the initial details. So you never know, Nintendo's logo could just randomly go up on this webpage one day. We'll keep an eye on that. But having PlayStation show up here, but not at E3 is interesting. I mean, here's the thing with this. Sony could show up with like one trailer and just be part of the show on the website. So could show up there with less than what would be expected if you show up at E3 and you have to hold up your own show, whereas Sony seems to just want to do a state of play on their own time. Could be at the end of June, could be like sometime in July, just to set up like the second half of this year. But I'm now looking forward to Summer Game Fest a bit more than I originally thought. And the fact that it's like 3 or 4 days before E3 and some of the events they have listed on the site appear to run alongside E3, that is going to be a chaotic 4 to 5 days of just information and gaming news all over the place. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this will be a lot of fun, and I will go ahead and live stream at least the opening stream and show that they have here, and that will be June 10th. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, do you collect Nintendo Amiibo figures? 2% of you said, yes, I collect every Amiibo when it releases. 29% of you said, yes, I just buy the ones I like. 10% say you do not now, but you did at one point. And then 58% of you said, no, never got into the Amiibo scene. And I remember when Amiibos were first coming out, I was interested in them. I think I had like 2 or 3, which was like a Yoshi and Villager and maybe like Mario. But after that, that was kind of it, because I'm telling you, at one point, it was mayhem when an Amiibo figure was released. Finding it was difficult. You'd be waiting in lines in stores. And I mean, most people would just buy them and not even take them out of the package. They would just kind of set them up as decoration. So I fell out of it very, very quickly, very early on. But sometimes you see an Amiibo come out and it's a character you like, and you're like, yeah, that would make a cool figure. I don't really think about the stuff that it necessarily does in the game, which is kind of why I was a bit surprised that Nintendo felt the need to put something like that, where you're basically fast traveling around in Zelda Skyward Sword to a degree, teleporting out of a dungeon and then teleporting back, when the Zelda-themed Amiibo would probably just sell without it. And we'll finish up with a comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Ultima Black Mage saying, I wonder if the Microsoft and Nintendo negotiations is actually for the rare titles for N64 for Nintendo Switch Online. It looked like they were talking about xCloud and iOS and then another platform. All of a sudden, Nintendo's like, well, we can't have that out there, start redacting that. I wonder what platform that was for then, that Nintendo would care so much to put a big block that says redacted over the entirety of the next page. It was possible they could have been talking about something with Game Pass, like Rare Replay having its own selection on the Switch. It would be interesting if they kind of threw different things in from Nintendo that's just streamed to the Switch there. There are some cool things they could do there. But for Nintendo Switch Online with N64, hey, maybe they really want Jet Force Gemini and they were like, we cannot let investors know that we're trying to get that game from Rare on the Switch. That would just mess everything up. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the Amiibo figure for Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD that was announced? Are you frustrated that they have that feature locked behind a $25 Amiibo that, let's face it, in Zelda's anniversary year, would be very difficult to find? Let me know about that one. And then also, what about the Nintendo Switch Online games that were announced, and then the update for Last of Us Part 2 on the PlayStation 5. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.